Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. My name is Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West and chair of this committee. Today we will hear from presenters regarding an update on the Seamless Canada Agreement. And at this moment I'd like us all to please put our phones on silent or turn them off. And in case of an emergency, we'll just remind everybody that we would use the Granville Street exit and walk up to the Grand Parade. We'd like to welcome our guests both here in the room and virtually. Welcome to you all. And at this point, I would like to ask all of our members to introduce themselves with their name and their constituency. We'll begin with, to my left, MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Johnny McDonald, MLA for Hants East. Bad part is I can't remember who I'm sitting in here for. Daniel Barker. I'm Ollie Barker. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Larry Harrison, MLA for Colchester, Muscat, Albert Valley.
Hi there and welcome. Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Good afternoon. Trevor Boudreau, the MLA for Richmond.
Hi, Gary Burrell. I represent Halifax, Chebucto.
Good afternoon. Tony Ince, member for Cole Harbour.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Ben Jessam. I represent Hammonds Plains, Lucasville, and with me today is Janelle Oliver Harris, who's working in my constituency office.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our committee. MLA Taggart.
As I would in the House, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Permission granted.
And with us here today is Jagger Laird. He's a friend of mine from Colchester North, and he's going to work with me some over the summer. He's a keen interest in politics, and hopefully I don't turn him away. All right? Thanks.
Well, any friend of MLA Taggart's is a friend of ours, so thank you and welcome to our committee room today. My right, and Legislative Committee Clerk Tamara Nusebe to my left. So we will move on to our presenters. Welcome to all of you. At this point, I'd like to ask you to all introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into opening statements after that. I'll begin with Mr. Eisan to introduce yourself, and then we'll do the reverse order for our opening comments. So, Mr. Eisan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Darryl Eisan, and I'm the Director of Canada-U.S. Relations and also the Director of Military Relations for the Nova Scotia Department of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Ms. Ogilvie? Ms. Ogilvie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a muting issue. If you mute it. Sorry, there's some feedback here. My name's Laurie Ogilvie. I'm the Senior Vice President of Military Family Services with the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services.
Thank you. Ms. Chiasson?
Good afternoon. I'm Pamela Chiasson. I'm the Seamless Canada Portfolio Manager working for the Director of Personnel Strategy within the Chief of Military Personnel Command. I'm responsible for the secretarial administration of the Seamless Canada Steering Committee, ensuring both co-chairs are supported, liaisoning with provinces and territories to continue to advance the issues of military families and issues management as they pertain to the Seamless Canada themes.
Thank you. And at this point, we'd like to give you all an opportunity to give some opening comments to our committee. And we'll begin with Ms. Chiasson. If you'd like to offer your opening comments, please feel free.
Thank you. I'll be offering opening comments for myself and Ms. Ogilvie. Good afternoon. I'd like to recognize that today Ms. Ogilvie and I are joining you from the traditional unceded territory of Anishinaabe people. I'd like to open by thanking the committee for its interest in Seamless Canada. This is our second opportunity to present in front of the Standing Committee. Ms. Ogilvie and I will do our best to answer the questions you may have regarding the Seamless Canada initiative, and if not, we'll be happy to find the answers for you and communicate them back to you. As many of you are aware, the demands we place on military families are significant. Along with separation for training and operations, there's also the chronic impact of relocation on family stability and welfare, including access to healthcare, impacts on child and youth education, including access to daycare, and eliminating barriers to spousal employment. Our military families are at the heart of the CAF's operational effectiveness, and they are truly the strength behind the uniform. It is with this in mind that D&D and the Canadian Armed Forces launched the Seamless Canada Initiative 5 years ago to help address, with our federal, provincial, and territorial partners, the mobility challenges faced by military families when they move between jurisdictions. Since 2018, we have had a number of in-person and virtual meetings to work through some of these challenges. Although Canadian research findings suggest that the majority of military families are resilient and well supported within a healthy Canadian Armed Forces community, greater family stability is at the top 3 reasons why CAF members decide to leave the Canadian Armed Forces. It is therefore important to ensure that we are addressing the needs of the military families in order to retain our valuable CAF members. Seamless Canada is a key enabler in ensuring that the contemporary reality of families is identified and the inherent challenges to the military lifestyle are considered. Over the last 5 years, each province and territory within Seamless Canada has provided critical contributions that have helped us to unpack potential mobility solutions to better support our CAF members and their families. Keeping in mind that this is our second opportunity to appear in front of this committee, I would just like to briefly remind the committee that our mobility challenges are grouped under 3 themes, namely child and youth education, including access to childcare, access to healthcare, which includes the accessibility to provincial and territorial services, including physicians and specialists, and finally, spousal and partner employment, with the ability to transfer professional accreditations and licenses across jurisdictions raised as one of our main issues. Through the Seamless Canada Initiative, I would like to highlight that collectively, we have achieved the following for CAF members and their families. We have waived the standard 90-day waiting period for access to healthcare services in Canada's 13 provinces and territories. We've implemented a virtual healthcare for military families. We've designated CAF members as essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, developed a military spousal employment network, which is the employment and training support services for military spouses. We've reviewed education barriers for students relocating between jurisdictions, and the Council of Ministers of Education Canada is currently developing a new student transfer guide. Since our June 2022 appearance at this committee, I'm happy to inform you that we have made some significant strides in close partnership with our provincial and territorial partners. In June 2022, in-person and provincial territorial delegates signed a terms of reference for the Seamless Canada Steering Committee, thus solidifying Seamless Canada as a formal federal, provincial, territorial committee. Virtual participants signed the TOR, leveraging the regional joint task forces across Canada, ensuring that all provincial and territories were afforded the opportunity to commit to the initiative. The TOR is a significant symbol solidifying the strong commitment of each province and territory to working with us to alleviate military family mobility challenges. Coinciding with the signing of the TOR, the Minister of National Defence and the Member of Legislative Assembly, Mary Wilson from New Brunswick, were named as co-chairs, forging more collaboration amongst the named delegates of the Seamless Canada Steering Committee. In December 22, a governance framework to support the new terms of reference was endorsed, which means that we will now meet twice annually for the delegates to discuss persistent mobility challenges and gain consensus on opportunities to overcome those challenges. Much work occurs behind the scenes to support these engagements, and that is where my team comes in. To support the semi-annual meetings, we have both subcommittee and thematic working groups meetings with participating jurisdictions. My team works with participating jurisdictions in both forums to help unpack the potential solution spaces to our mobility challenges. For example, at one of the working group meetings, the collective identified that in many jurisdictions, a military spouse must be considered a resident of a province or territory to access some of the employment supports available. This means that in some provinces, the military spouse can only apply for some employment supports after residing in the jurisdiction for 90 days. At the recent Seamless Canada Steering Committee annual conference in May 2023, there was general support that the military families would not have to wait the normal 90-day waiting period to have access to employment supports. This challenge will continue to be a topic of interest at the next working group meeting later this month to help unpack the solutions. In terms of next steps, we have our next working group scheduled for the 26th of June 2023, and we will continue to discuss related spousal partner employment. Later in the summer or early fall, a second theme working group will be launched focusing on access to childcare for military families. The Seamless Canada team, along with its stakeholders, will be preparing for this activity over the summer months. I would also like to add that for the first time, an annual report for the Seamless Canada Steering Committee will be published as an external-facing document this year, and it is currently under development. We are thankful for the support and the willingness of all provinces and territories, specifically Nova Scotia, to collaborate with us on reducing the mobility barriers for our military families encounter. Thank you for the time, and we are available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Chiasson. I'd like to pass it over to Mr. Eisan for some opening remarks.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to join you today. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to your committee discussions and to provide an update on the Seamless Canada initiative as it pertains to the role of military relations in the province of Nova Scotia. As I'm sure everyone is aware, Nova Scotia is home to a significant portion of Canada's military assets, including the country's most populated military base, Canadian Forces Base Halifax. The defence presence in Nova Scotia is a strategic asset for the province, and retaining and expanding this crucial asset is a priority for the government of Nova Scotia. Importantly, military policies have considerable implications for the province as they impact employment, healthcare, international relations, public safety and security, research and development, business development, attraction and retention, and the overall livelihood and well-being of our veterans, military members, and their families. As such, the Honourable John Laurie, Minister responsible for military relations, was tasked with two mandate letter directives. One, ensure the important contributions of our military members, veterans, and their families are recognized within all areas of government. And two, work with the federal government to ensure Nova Scotia's defence sector continues to be a driving force of innovation and economic growth for our province. In recognition of these two priority areas, Intergovernmental Affairs provides support to Minister Laurie on this portfolio to ensure our military members and their families continue to be recognized as a critically important asset to our society and our economy. As such, Intergovernmental Affairs actively engages with the military's many facets to ensure CAF personnel, their families, and Nova Scotian industries connected to the defence sector have a line of communication to DND and CAF. One of these many areas of engagements is through the Seamless Canada initiative, a partnership strongly valued by the province. Since my colleagues presenting alongside me today have provided their insights and background on the Seamless Canada initiative, I will speak solely to updates related to the province's engagement with this federal initiative since Seamless Canada's appearance before this committee in June of 2022. Since Seamless Canada's launch in June of 2018, Intergovernmental Affairs has remained actively engaged in this file. In June 2022, Minister Laurie, along with other federal, provincial, territorial representatives, signed the terms of reference which ratified the Seamless Canada Steering Committee. And following the signing of the terms of reference, Intergovernmental Affairs has been an active participant, proactively engaging with all elements of the initiative. For example, with respect to healthcare, Intergovernmental Affairs worked with the Nova Scotia Department of Health and Wellness to implement the 90-day waiver initiative. The 90-day waiver initiative was established for military families to receive access to health cards when undergoing interprovincial postings. Prior to implementing the 90-day waiver, military families had to self-advocate throughout the application process to pursue an exemption to the policy that imposes a 90-day waiting period for access to health care upon relocation. By the fall of 2022, Nova Scotia had fully implemented the 90-day waiver, as well as ensure the information was visible and accessible on the Department of Health and Wellness's website. Additionally, Intergovernmental Affairs has participated in the first series of working group meetings on spousal employment that were launched earlier this year. Briefly stated, the working groups are a platform where subject matter experts and federal, provincial, territorial representatives gathered to discuss challenges and barriers experienced by CAF members and their families as they pertain to the initiative's three policy areas, as well as to identify potential solutions. Given that the first series of working group meetings were on spousal employment, Intergovernmental Affairs worked with colleagues at the Nova Scotia Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration and the Nova Scotia Public Service Commission to ensure that the right sector experts were at the table to provide critical insights on this topic. Nova Scotia's work with the spousal employment working group has led to the development of several navigational tools that could assess a military spouse upon relocation. Additionally, the province's public employment services were identified to support military spouses in finding employment as we welcome them to our province both prior to and after they arrive. As a result of this collaborative work, these provincial employment supports and programs are now visible on the Seamless Canada webpage for increased awareness and accessibility to military members and their families. As Nova Scotia continues to be engaged in Seamless Canada discussions, the same collaborative approach will be conducted when working groups are established later this year on the remaining two priority areas of healthcare and childcare and dependent education. Mr. Chairman, those are my opening comments. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today. I'd be very pleased to answer any questions that the members may have, and if I cannot answer your questions today, I'll ensure to get those answers back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eisan, and thank you all for your opening remarks. I think we're in for a very good conversation today and look forward to the progress and hearing about what's been happening since our last meeting last June. So I'd like to remind all of us to remember to don't speak until I recognize you in the microphones, to those who are here in the room and those who aren't. And we also will be doing a show of hands for our questioning as per the protocol of this committee. So I will do my best to keep an eye on hands for questioning. And if our guests online, if you would like to add a comment to a question that may not be directed to you, make sure you please put your hand up through the online Zoom. Don't use the mic, just raise their hand. Yeah, don't use the mic, just raise your hand. That's fine. I'll do my best to kind of keep rallying everybody here if I can. So we will open up the floor. We'll go till 3:45. So we will open up the table for questions at this point in time. MLA, okay. We'll begin with MLA McDonald.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure who's going to take this one, but at the last time of our update, there were 32 military family resource centers and across the country. Has that number changed at all?
Mr. Eisan.
I don't believe that number has changed in Nova Scotia. I still believe there are 3 military family resource centers in Nova Scotia located at Windsor Park, in the Annapolis Valley, and 14-wing Shearwater, 14-wing Greenwood, and also in 12-wing Shearwater. My colleagues at Seamless Canada could tell us if, in fact, if the numbers have changed outside of Nova Scotia.
Emma McDonald, would you like one of our other guests to add any context to that?
Yeah, if they could.
Would either one of our guests online like to respond to that question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. I have to just make sure you're recognized. That's all. That's okay. So, Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would be pleased to take the question. There still are 32 MFRCs located in Canada. We also have military family support networks across Europe, the US, as well as we've just expanded support through Rest of World, which are families that are located in countries that are not in Europe or the United States. And what we have added during COVID and continue to be would be a 33rd MFRC, both in Canada and internationally, and it's our virtual MFRC. So providing all the support to military families that is available at an MFRC, but also from a virtual context.
Thank you, and I will allow for a quick follow-up supplementary question for each MLA, but I again remind everybody it's not meant to be a second question, it is a follow-up to the previous question. So with that little warning, Mr. MLA McDonald, we'll pass it back to you for a quick supplementary.
So no preamble, hey, Mr. Chair. So quickly then, I'm just wondering, are there plans to have expansion of the centers, and I'm going to say in Nova Scotia?
Is that directed to Ms. Ogilvie, or
I'm looking for him to decide.
Oh, so okay, Ms. Ogilvie, you raised your hand, so I'll allow you to answer that question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, there are no plans for the expansion of MFRCs themselves. There In 2020, we launched a new strategic framework for the delivery of military and veteran family services. And so as a result of that, we're looking at different delivery mechanisms, both within the MFRCs, but also by providers that are located in each of the communities. An example of that could be our connection with Kids Help Phone that is providing mental health support for children and youth that are in crisis. So we're looking to expand service offerings, not necessarily bricks and mortar facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Taggart.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not. My question will be to Ms. Ogilvie or Ms. Chiasson or both. So, what specific programs does Seamless promote to provide support to military families on the matters of mental health and addictions?
So, Ms. Ogilvie, would you like to begin with that? It's hard for me to see all the screens, so I don't. All I see is Ms. Ogilvie at this moment. So, Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will start with the answer, but then I'll pass it to my colleague, Pam, to do a more specific answer around Seamless Canada. So from a programming perspective, we have a variety of services that are available for mental health, from psychoeducational programming all the way to crisis intervention and mental health counseling for our military families, both in person and virtually. From an addictions specifically, we don't have any programs, but we do partner with organizations to provide referrals to areas where families or people that are connected with the military to be able to access that level of support. But we are not specialists in addiction support, so we don't offer it. We refer out to specialists in the community. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Pam, right now.
Ms. Chiasson.
So thank you for that, Laurie. I would just like to potentially provide a little bit of clarity about Seamless Canada. Seamless Canada is a platform whereby the federal, provincial, and territorial partners are getting together to talk about the mobility challenges with respect to our CAF members and their families moving across the country. Seamless Canada itself does not actually provide any programming. The programming that's provided to our military families is actually done by our CFMWS, Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services. My colleague Laurie is specifically responsible for the military family piece to that, because Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services is a much bigger organization. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you. MLA Taggart, did you have a follow-up?
I do. So I guess I'll switch back to Ms. Chiasson, is it? Ogilvie. Thank you. I guess on the mental health piece, I'm hung up on that. When you talk about services through Seamless Canada and the military, clearly these are current serving members, and the whole family is covered under, it's kind of a two-part question. The whole family is covered under, am I correct in that the whole family is covered under the, not Veterans Affairs, but Canadian Armed Forces? And secondly, do you do anything, does either one of you do anything within Seamless Canada to support the veterans and mental health when they leave the armed forces? And that's really the sticker for me. We have had others before us at this committee to speak about mental health, in particular PTSD and that sort of thing in the military, which is a huge concern of mine. And the idea that when they leave the armed services, they lose that support that they have from Canadian Armed Forces. So I guess to go back to my question, does Canadian Armed Forces support family members with mental health needs, same as they do the actual soldier? Thank you.
So, Ms. Ogilvie?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. So the Canadian Armed Forces supports military families. There is a policy called, and I'm blanking on the actual name of the policy, but where there's mental health support within the familial unit, where the supporting the family or the spouse with the support to the military member, that exists. However, on a standalone or families directly by the military, no, which is why the Military Family Service Program was established, and that is where within the Military Family Services Program we do provide mental health counseling to members of the families or anyone who's connected to the military that is experiencing a challenge. So we do that both in person through the Military Family Resource Centers. We also do it virtually through our virtual MFRC. We've seen an uptake in the number of virtual counseling sessions that we're doing within our virtual MFRC. We also, when I talked about our out of country locations, we have social workers and psychologists that are available for our families outside of Canada as well to provide, again, direct or virtual services. When you're talking about the transitioning members and their families to a veteran, to Veterans Affairs, if I could back up 1 second, there's also something called the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program, which provides support to members and their families, and so that is a program that's offered by the Canadian Armed Forces and provides a certain number of sessions for military members and their families to deal with some of the challenges that they're facing with the military lifestyle. Within there as well, there's also a bereavement support component to that, where families of the fallen or anybody who's been affected by a fallen member, whether it's related to service or not, can access specialized bereavement support services. And now I'll fast forward to those families that are going through the transition process, so leaving the Canadian Armed Forces for whatever reason it happens to be. There are transition centers that have been established or are in the process of being established at most of the bases and wings across the country. And within there, we have family liaison officers, which are mental health professionals, which support the families through the transition into going to become Veteran Affairs clients or leaving the Canadian Armed Forces. We also have family transition advisors. That's a relatively new addition to the transition centers to support families that may be struggling with the transition. Once a family has or a member has released within Veterans Affairs, for those members that have released for illness and injury, then there is also at every one of our MFRCs across the country, there's a Veteran Family Program Coordinator, and the Veteran Family Program Coordinator, this is a partnership between my organization and Veteran Affairs, provides dedicated support to families and to veterans that are experiencing challenges with post-release from the Canadian Armed Forces, especially around mental health, and PTSD, as you mentioned, is one of those significant areas. The last thing I'll mention on that is there are some significant educational programs. So there's something called Road to Mental Readiness that has been created by the Canadian Armed Forces, and we have worked very closely with them on also developing a family component to that. So we take it from all areas, so from crisis intervention, which I sort of talked about, to the education, preparing families and members for any of the experiences that they're having as a result of the military lifestyle.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Jessom.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Ogilvie, Ms. Chiasson, thank you for your time today. Mr. Eisan, good to reconnect. Appreciate your ongoing work on this file and many others with respect to military families and veterans. Perhaps directed at Ms. Chiasson or Ms. Ogilvie, could you dive a little deeper into the expectations outlined in the terms of reference that were signed by all jurisdictions in Canada, please?
So I'll go to Ms. Chiasson first for that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jessup, for the question. If I understand your question correctly, you're wondering if what the terms of reference state in terms of liability or the terms of reference are non-binding. We rely solely on the goodwill and the best intentions of provinces and territories to continue to work with us. Our organization is set up there to work very collaboratively. We recognize, Seamless Canada itself recognizes that all of the things that are in our themes, all of the problem sets that are in our themes are in the jurisdictional space of provinces and territories. This is their legislative authority. So whatever work we can do, whatever problem sets that we uncover that we can develop solution spaces for will be done working with individual provinces and territories based on their comfort level, based on their jurisdictions, based on their ability to accommodate some of our challenges. I hope that answers your question.
MLA Jessup for a follow-up.
Thank you. Appreciate that that response. And I will say that I had the opportunity to participate in the inaugural and subsequent meetings of Seamless Canada in 2018. So this has been of personal interest on behalf of my constituents and military families for some time. I have motioned at this committee to open up the discussion at our committee, change the mandate of this committee to involve military families. I will note that this motion was rejected by the government. However, what I would like to ask is perhaps, and again directed at Ms. Ogilvie and Ms. Chiasson, can you speak to other jurisdictions and the way that they approach the Seamless Canada initiative? For me, I felt that an all-party committee directed at serving military families was a reasonable step in supporting the government's intention to support the Seamless Canada initiative. So from your perspective, looking at all jurisdictions, are there examples that you can provide this committee with how they are intentional about supporting Seamless Canada?
So I'll go back to Ms. Chiasson for that.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really important to understand that each province and territory is going to approach this very differently. I can offer to you that since we've started our working groups, we have had wonderful participation from all provinces and territories. Everyone has shown up. We've asked for remits to help us understand what's available inside the provinces and territories. Most have been very, very good at providing feedback to us, giving us a steer, because most of these issues are not in our SNE subject matter expert areas. So I would say, in total, provinces and territories are very open and collaborative with us. In terms of what we've actually been able to tangibly produce yet, we're early days at really trying to dig into these themes, theme by theme, problem set by problem set. Our themes have many different layers and levels to them, and we're still unpacking them on our own. So I hope that, I know that that's a very generic answer, but the fact that people are coming to the table, they're talking, they're providing ideas, they're providing information, it is going to get us to where we need to be. And we don't have an end state per se, other than the fact that our military families are well supported as they're moving across the jurisdictions. That may look very different in one province or territory from another. We're not here to compare those things. We're here to try to ease the transition of military families.
Thank you very much. Our next three MLA questions will come from MLA Ince, MLA Boudreau, and MLA McDonald. MLA Ince.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. My question, I guess, is for Ms. Ogilvie. And the Military Spousal Employment Initiative has a program eligibility requirements. Can you talk about those program eligibility requirements?
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the question. Yes, I can talk about the eligibility requirements. So to give a little bit of background on the Spousal Employment Network is we have a specific amount of resources that we're putting towards it. We would like to expand it. We're actually in the process of expanding it. So what our focus has been on, and I'll get to the eligibility requirements in a second, has been on supporting those families that, those spouses that are transitioning and are having trouble reestablishing employment during the transition process, or because of the challenges with transferring credentials from between provinces and territories. So we have had to limit the eligibility for the spousal network, the spousal employment network, to be able to, one, ensure that we can provide the best support possible within the resource allocation. As I mentioned, that's been expanded, and we're in this current fiscal year, we'll be doubling our capability within the Spousal Employment Network, as well as we're looking at increasing the number of employers that are going to be part of the Spousal Employment Network, which is going to allow us to expand our capacity to be able to deliver to potentially, and that's what we're researching right now, an expanded eligibility to the Spousal Employment Network.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Inns for a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. And can you explain or tell us, has the labor shortages affected the spousal partner employment programs?
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the question. I cannot say specifically that is the reason. What I can say is that the employers that have been part of our Military Family Spousal Employment Network are very active, and we are placing a relatively significant number of, or connecting a significant number of employers with military spouses, and there are a significant number of military spouses that have received employment as a result. One of, I would say, the bigger challenges was the very quick pivot we needed to do with the career fairs during COVID. So it was creating a virtual career fair platform where we could connect those employers with the spouses. And I will say that the availability or the option for virtual work has really been a positive for our military spouses, because they can port their employment as they're moving across the country because they're working in a virtual capacity. So not really specific answer, but what I am saying is that the labor shortage is an issue across Canada, as it is with all employers, but we have worked to try to mitigate or look at other solutions to be able to connect military families, because they're at a greater disadvantage because of relocation.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Boudreau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming. And I was going to ask a different question, but I'm going to follow up on MLA Ince a little bit, just with respect to the Spousal Employment Working Group, or that network. And it's one of those three themes I think that everybody's working on. But can you tell us a bit more about what that working group is made up of, and what they do, and how they kind of come to the conclusions or supports that they can provide? So I guess I'm just asking kind of in broad strokes, what is that group, and how do they function?
Well, we haven't heard from Mr. Eisan in a while, so let's begin with Mr. Eisan, and any of our other guests would like to add to that. We'll allow that to happen, but Mr. Eisan right now.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. And certainly, Pam or Laurie can certainly add to what I put on in front of you with respect to spousal employment. So, following the signing of the terms of reference a year ago in Ottawa, the steering committee decided that there would be three priority areas of focus. Spousal employment is the first one that provinces and the federal government have tackled. So we have established a subcommittee of federal and provincial representatives, and my colleagues with me today are on it. And Intergovernmental Affairs is supported by colleagues at the Public Service Commission, and also with the Nova Scotia Department of Labor Skills and Integration. So what we've done so far is that Seamless has asked us to provide back to them a number of sort of navigational tools that spouses that are moving, or military families that are transitioning to Nova Scotia, can have these tools at their disposal right away. And so that is now available on Seamless's website. And when you and there are other areas that, as the working group continues to meet, that we're going to look at as well as it relates to spousal employment. We've had 2 working committee meetings thus far. It only started at the turn of the year. Our next one is actually coincidentally on Monday, June 26th, and we'll just continue to work as federal provincial territorial colleagues do when it comes to issues like this. Pam or Laurie might be able to add some additional details as well from more of a macro perspective with respect to the MSEN.
Thank you, Mr. Eisan. Ms. Chiasson or Ms. Ogilvie? I'd like to know, one of you raise your hands and I'll recognize you. Okay, Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Chair. So just to piggyback onto my colleague Darryl's response to you. So the working groups were set up because in the past, at the Seamless Canada Steering Committee meetings, they were just annual meetings, and we were talking about our issues. We were highlighting what our military families were, what their challenges were in terms of moving. But it was a great platform. We had great support from all the provinces and territories around the table, but there wasn't a lot of focused work being done inside the themes. So how do we make these changes? How do we get things done? What do we need to do? And so the working group concept was devised in order to be able to dig into these things just a little bit more, peel back the onions just a little bit more to try to determine where the actual barriers really are. Our data from a CAF D&D perspective is quite high level. So for example, in terms of military spouse employment, we were told that it would be great if provinces and territories would offer employment supports, if our credentials and licenses would be recognized, and et cetera, et cetera. So in our first working group, I shared some of that information. First of all, I gave everybody a background of what we do and what we were what the problem set was in terms of military spousal employment. And of course, around the table, provinces and territories are like, well, we have lots of spousal employment supports, or lots of employment supports. We're not really sure where those friction points might be. And so as we asked provinces and territories, the first was a remit. Can you give us an example of what programs are available to military families, what that would look like for them as somebody new coming into the province? Provinces and territories have a plethora of employment supports available to their constituents. There's no question about that, and that was quickly seen. In order to provide a little bit more context to provinces and territories, we developed a scenario tool to say, okay, Joe Bloggins is moving to this province, his wife has this experience, what would be available to them? And we just recently received those remits from provinces and territories. So it's actually really a working group. So here's our problem, and then we're peeling back the layers to try to really determine what the friction points are for military families. The very first one that was very prevalent to us is the fact that in order to gain access to some employment supports, and it's not across the country because every province and territory is just a little bit different. But one of the things is the 90-day wait in order to be able to access. You must be a resident. Well, what does it mean to be a resident? Well, generally, and again, it's different in some, so I can't speak to all, but in order to be a resident, to be considered a resident, usually you're there for 180 days or 90 days. And so trying to understand what that real problem space is, what that real friction point is for military families when they're moving, and trying to figure out, well, what can we do about that? What supports are available? Can we offer some career counseling as soon as they walk in on their, so the military does a house hunting trip so they can go and find lodgings and things for their families? Can they walk into the spousal, can they walk into the employment supports and see what's available? Can they start some career counseling once they get there on their house hunting trip in order to be able to access so that they're ready to go when they hit the ground versus having to wait 90 days to get there? So that's an example of what the working group is looking at and how it's functioning right now. I hope that provides the clarity or the insight that you were looking for, and I'll pass the floor over to you, Chair.
Thank you. MLA Boudreau for any follow-up.
More of a comment than a follow-up question, but that was very helpful. my brain was going around in terms of, when you're, if a family member is moving with their military partner, they go to a province, and if you're like me and a chiropractor, well, you have to get your license. Your license would have to be changed, right? You have to go to a provincial one, and although this isn't specific to military families, some of the new legislation that we put forward in the spring will allow for some of that change to happen with at least healthcare workers, to allow healthcare workers to move into our province in a smoother transition. So I know it's not related specifically to military families, but I do think it provides our province with a step up that we've been trying to look at this kind of as a global issue. So that's just my comment on that. I'll have more questions later.
Thanks, MLA Boudreau. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to go back to the Military Family Resource Center, I mean, I live in East Hants, so I have a fair amount of military along there, and I'm just wondering, like, how are the services from the Military Family Resource Center done outside of the center? Like, how is a decision made that there should be some services in a certain area?
Mr. Eisan.
I believe that my two colleagues would probably be better suited to answer that question.
Very fair. We'll begin with Ms. Chiasson, if you'd like to.
No.
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to take the question. So MFRCs, and when I'm talking bricks and mortar MFRCs, have been established for years where they're located, and it really has to do with what the request is by the Canadian Armed Forces for the delivery of services within their area of responsibility. What each MFRC does, and I will say it's different across the country, is there's outreach as well. So where there's pockets of families that are located not close to where the bricks and mortar of the MFRC is, then the staff within the MFRC will go out to the community and provide supports. With the advent of the virtual MFRC, it's also another option where families can access services. Again, not the things that need to be done in person, but the ones that can be done virtually. So we're seeing a significant increase in the number that are accessing from a virtual perspective. Now, if there is a demand from a particular community, we will consider establishing an MFRC in that community. The most recent example of that was in Charlottetown PEI, where a number of families, as well as the Canadian Armed Forces leadership that's responsible for PEI generally, asked to have more tailored services for their families, and we developed or established a MFRC in Charlottetown. So it's not off the table, but there's a process for us to be able to look at where is that large pocket of families, how can we best support those families, and what options are available based on the ones I've just explained right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily McDonald for a follow-up.
Long preamble. No, just teasing, Mr. Chair. So you mentioned that the demands are growing for the MFRC. So how do you feel with the current number of MFRCs that we have? Are they able to meet the demands that are coming, and not just Nova Scotia, obviously all across the country? Thank you.
Ms. Ogilvie. Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. We conduct community needs assessments every couple of years in each of the communities across the country to assess what family experiences are with the services that are available, and then what those unmet needs are. So we take all of that information, and then we are continually modernizing what our approach is to the delivery of services for families, and what programs and where they're located. So as I mentioned, PEI, also at the Ottawa MFRC, it extends all the way into the Cornwall region, which it's significantly far away from the Ottawa area. So what we do is use those results of the community needs assessment to determine where our areas of gaps are, where also potential areas are a duplication, and how we can offset those. So can I say hand on heart right now that absolutely there's enough MFRCs and absolutely the demand is being met with the existing MFRCs? No, I can't say that, because the demand continually evolves and continually moves, especially as families are moving outside of kind of the core geographical area of where our base and wings are located. Halifax would be an excellent example of where families, because of the cost of housing, are moving farther away from where the actual core Halifax or Shearwater locations are. So working with the MFRC on what are those outreach or what are the needs in that particular community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next round of questioning will come from MLA Harrison, MLA Chiasson, and then MLA Burrell. MLA Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that there was a Seamless Canada Steering Committee conference in Fredericton. This is kind of an open question, but can you just share with us some of the highlights of the information that was shared at that conference?
I'll begin with Mr. Eisan.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. And certainly my colleagues can add to what I tell you as well. It was the annual conference was in Fredericton, May 24th, 25th, and the Honourable John Laurie attended as the Minister responsible for military relations. The meeting, as far as highlights go, from a Nova Scotia perspective, is that Minister Laurie certainly highlighted to the table the good work that Nova Scotia has done over the last several months with respect to spousal employment. As my colleagues can attest, we've been quite engaged on the spousal employment working group, and we've provided to Seamless significant information about how we can make the transition with respect to spousal employment a little bit easier in Nova Scotia. I think that as we're looking forward, we have working meetings coming up, and then obviously our next meeting of the steering committee will be later this year, and that's always a virtual session. As far as other highlights of the meeting goes, certainly there was engagement from all provinces and territories. There was full attendance either in person or virtually. And if Pam or Laurie wants to add to that, I encourage them to do so.
That looks like Ms. Chiasson with her hand up. So Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo my colleague, Mr. Eisan's comments. Nova Scotia has been extremely present and engaged inside of the working groups. They have provided us really significant remits, which we really appreciate. And in fact, we're using some of the information that Nova Scotia has provided to us to generate more conversation around the table at the next working group on Monday. So in terms of the steering committee meeting that happened on the 24th of May, attendance was exceptional. The discussion, the fact that we're starting these working groups and having these more fulsome discussions, peeling back the layers of some of the information, you know, we spent 30 minutes talking about spousal employment around the table. Now, spousal employment is kind of divided into two categories, right? There's the stuff that is only done by provinces and territories, spousal employment offices, support programs that are happening, or not spousal, but the employment support programs that are offered inside of each province and territory. And then there's the credentialing and licensing piece, which is, I mean, that's being handled by ESDC and the Labor Mobility Working Group. So we try not to touch into that space too much. We can link into it, but we try not to duplicate those efforts because, you know, everybody's working really hard to look at all of these challenges from a different lens. So we had significant conversation about spousal employment and what that could look like inside of the provinces and territories. And I can offer that there was extreme support that, you know, military families shouldn't necessarily have to wait that 90 days to have access to provincial services, provincial territorial services. Obviously, that is within the jurisdiction of each province and territory. But overall, that was the conversation. Later on we had another focused area of conversation inside the steering committee, and that was about childcare. my colleague can speak more to that, but in general terms, CFMWS, Military Family Services, they have looked into the childcare issue for our military families, what that looks like, what are the gaps, what are the things that we need to be looking at. And that information, some of that information will help us launch into the next working group that we're going to start later. And so I hope that answers your question on the steering committee. And Laurie, would you like to answer or provide any more information on that?
Ms. Ogilvie?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Pam. Yes, I presented as well on the childcare work that's been conducted in the last 10 months. So what I talked about at the steering or at the Seamless Canada was the background and the research that was done on the gaps and the challenges that military families face accessing childcare, and the impact of not being able to access childcare has on the operational capability of the Canadian Armed Forces. I also spoke about some of the next stages of the childcare strategy. So there has been a childcare strategy that has been drafted. It has not been actioned or any of the pieces reviewed with the goal of implementation. That's the process that we're in right now. We have been able to, as part of the development of the childcare strategy, implement, I think it's about 19, I don't have my notes here, pilot initiatives to be able to offset some of the challenges that families have told us that they're facing in accessing childcare. The one piece I will leave you with, and that I was very clear, and in Nova Scotia more specifically, it's been a challenge, is the lack of ECE or early childhood education workers. And so it's not about building facilities. It's not about the number of children, because getting the facilities, the number of families that want access to childcare absolutely exists. It's finding the qualified staff to be able to ensure the operations. Now, part of the strategy that's been developed or drafted is addresses that as well. I can't talk more about that right now because we're just in the stage of reviewing what can and what cannot be accomplished. We are working closely with ESDC and the federal child care strategy implementation across the provinces and territories to make sure that there is alignment as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. MLA Jessup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will, to Mr. Boudreau's comments about breaking down the barriers around introducing new healthcare, I guess, credentialing, what's the word I'm looking for? Making it more efficient for healthcare workers to approach our province and work in this province. I will tip my hat to the government for that initiative, one that we were as a party supportive of. I used the example, my wife worked as a first responder, EMT, out of jurisdiction, actually studied a textbook that was written by a former health minister of Nova Scotia, but couldn't, though she had worked on an ambulance out of jurisdiction, could not come seamlessly, pun intended, into Nova Scotia and hit the ground running for our people here. So that type of work, and I've always felt that Seamless, while it focuses on the military and military spouses with respect to employment, I've always felt that this initiative could be a catalyst for broader reach, extending to interjurisdictional migration, period. So while this is a priority from a military perspective, I hope that the work that is done at Seamless can be influential in a more broadly reaching context. I do appreciate to our team visiting us virtually. I do appreciate the intention not to compare jurisdictions, and I respect and appreciate the ability that provinces have to put their own spin on supporting the cause. What I would ask from our guests is, could you please provide the committee with a list of, I'll say, governance models that the different provinces have to support the work that Seamless does, as well as to some of the changes that have been adopted in other jurisdictions to support, I guess, families specifically. Not to compare and contrast effectively, but also I believe that Nova Scotia should, given its population of military families, it should be a leader. So what my intention behind this question in providing these two streams of accomplishments or intentions is to ensure that Nova Scotia is a leader, and if there are things that we can do that make sense in Nova Scotia, I'd just like to do, a bit of a jurisdictional scan of what's out there.
Okay, thank you for the question, MLA Jessom. Let's go to, I was going to call you an MLA, Ms. Ogilvie. Ms. Ogilvie, it's probably demotion for you, but Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair. And no, thank you for that. I've always wanted to be an MLA. I'm actually going to pass it over to my colleague, Pam, because this is the work that she's been doing as part of Seamless Canada.
Thank you. Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can tell you that I have not actually sat down and written out all of the governance models of all of the different provinces and territories and how they support Seamless. How we have been operating to get the right people at the table is we use our intergovernment affairs people inside of our department, and they reach out to their intergovernment affairs personnel inside the provinces and territories and the networks that they have developed to get the right people at the table for us. It's really interesting. It's a really, really interesting question with respect to how we're actually going to get some changes made. And this is a space that's actually quite new for me. It's going to be very interesting. So hypothetically, if we decide that the 90-day issue is really an issue and we want to get provinces and territories to waive that 90-day wait for military spouses for employment supports, how do we do that? That's a new space for me. It's not something that I have delved into as of yet. So I wouldn't be able to give you a governance model that we would be following. In terms of how different provinces and territories are going to get this enacted, I think that varies based on how their governments are set up, how their legislative assemblies can get things moved through. Is it a big P policy change or is it a small P policy change? Is there legislation attached to any of this, of any of these ideas? I'm not sure. So as much as I would be very willing to provide what information that I have, I don't have any to give you at this point with respect to answer your question or to answer that kind of a remit. Thank you.
Thank you. MLA Jessom for a follow-up.
Yes, and I appreciate that information mightn't be readily available at this point in time, but I think from an accountability and a progress perspective, it would be useful to provinces to have a list of milestones or accomplishments that have been established across Canada in order to ensure that all provinces keep on track and keep up with other jurisdictions to the extent that they're able to do so, within provincial capacities. Posed to Mr. Eisan, sir, can you perhaps give us a sneak peek of the things to come from your office with respect to Seamless Canada, be it with respect to governance and supporting Seamless, or to actually have that face value impact on military families?
Before I recognize you, Mr. Eisan, I just want to remind all our members, our follow-up questions are to be supplementary to our previous question. So let's not try to sneak in second questions. We'll wait for another round. No, I'd just like to remind us all just to a follow-up supplementary for the similar question. But Mr. Eisan.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chiasson, for the question. So the way we support Seamless is that, so obviously the Minister responsible for military relations, the Honourable John Laurie, is the member of the steering committee of Seamless Canada, and he is supported in that role by myself and also by a direct report to me in Intergovernmental Affairs. And certainly we work within our office to provide any type of support that the Minister requires for anything that comes up with respect to Seamless. Now, certainly I can say that since the terms of reference were signed a year ago in Ottawa, the activity has been significant, and as my colleague Pam Chiasson alluded to, we've been at the table in providing feedback to any ask that Seamless has made, especially as it relates to the spousal employment file. So as far as governance goes, it is managed through Intergovernmental Affairs, and as far as supporting families go, we take the asks that we receive from Seamless very seriously. We certainly understand the importance of military families in Nova Scotia. We understand the importance of the military in Nova Scotia, and we understand the importance of the CAF in Nova Scotia. So when Seamless Canada when Seamless Canada comes to us and says, we'd like to see this type of feedback from your government or from your bureaucracy or from public service, we provide it. And we've been doing that over the last several months on the spousal employment, and we look forward to continuing to do it as the other tables with respect to the other priorities get established in the months ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Eisan. MLA Burrell.
Thank you. Ms. Ogilvie and Ms. Chiasson, I wanted to ask you about mobility challenges a little bit more broadly. We know that in addition to the areas that you've focused on, the spousal employment and education and healthcare, that there is the overall issue of the impact on family coherence at the broadest level of repeated uprooting and displacement and moving. And it does seem that the forces are, just from my distance, much more sensitive to this now than was the case a number of years ago. But I wanted to ask, are you aware, has there been a lengthening, an increase in the average length of postings in recent years? In other words, I'm thinking about how often personnel are having to go through the transitions that we're talking about this afternoon. Is this the same as it was in recent years, or in fact are these transitions being experienced, particularly for personnel with families, less than was the case a few years ago? Do we have any information about that?
Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's a very, very interesting question. It is a little outside of my lane. Generally speaking, I can tell you that the CAF moves people around in order to meet its operational effectiveness requirements. So someone might be in one location for 10 years. Someone else might be moving every 2 to 3 years, depending on what their career path is and what the needs and requirements are of the Canadian Armed Forces. So I'm not sure that we have any data that says that the CAF has lengthened postings from one point to another. I could certainly try to see if there's some information with respect to that. But I know that the CAF is very sensitive to these issues. They are sensitive to the impact that the moves have on our military families, hence the reason why they've dedicated resources to something like Seamless Canada. But at the end of the day, the Canadian Armed Forces is there to be an arm of the government and to provide that operational effectiveness that the government requires of it. And they do that based on what their inner needs are. That's as specific as I can get. I can try to come back to the committee with some information on whether or not we've lengthened postings. But generically speaking, we do move people around in order to meet the CAF operational effectiveness. And that is the priority.
Thank you. Ms. Ogilvie, did I see your hand up? Or no? Maybe it didn't. Ms. Ogilvie? Ms. Ogilvie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, I was scratching my ear, but I do have something to add. So with the release of the defense policy in 2017 and the strong, secure, and engaged, there was a direct reflection in there on the impact of relocations on familial health and well-being. And as a result, there's been a number of initiatives that have been implemented since that time to try to mitigate some of the challenges that families are facing around relocation. Now, COVID placed a different landscape or context on postings on families, as well as the change in our economic health of our country right now. So around the postings of families to communities where they can't afford to live as a result of just how the cost of housing or the cost of living is in a particular community, especially in the West Coast, I would point out more specifically. So there is a strong, and as you mentioned, there is definitely a reflection that postings have an impact, and we are doing everything we can to try to mitigate. But as my colleague Pam said, postings are based on operational requirements, and so there has to be a balance of both of those. Thank you.
Thank you. MLA Burrell for a follow-up.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the question of whether or not there are changes in the amount of seamlessness that's being required for personnel overall, I think is germane to this discussion, and any information you'd be able to provide, the committee would be glad to receive. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And if there is any more pertinent information about that, it can be sent to our clerk, and we can have that read at a future meeting. Thank you. So our next round of questioning will come from MLA Ince, MLA Taggart, and MLA McDonald. Ince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Ms. Ogilvie. Ms. Ogilvie, you had stated and made a comment about the challenges for housing. So my question for you is this: how has the shortages for housing affected the relocation for folks coming to Nova Scotia? How has that affected your work?
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. I can't speak specifically to the impact that housing has had on the relocation of military members to Nova Scotia specifically, but I can talk about the support that's provided to families when they do relocate to any province and territory, but more specifically Nova Scotia. So where families are experiencing any kind of financial disruption as a result of a move, or there's a specific challenge, then we do have a number of avenues to support families. So CISA, which is our within CFMWS is our financial organ or division. They can provide emergency loans and grants to support families when it's a minor or not a minor, but when it's a disruption as a result of, if it's a relocation, if it's something that has happened. We also have Support Our Troops, which supports families when they are relocating or if they're having any kind of crisis. So the example I can use there, and it's not specific to housing, but is around, we have a Christmas hamper program that we offer at Christmas time for military families that may be challenged with accessing all of the personal resources they need to be able to have a holiday, a successful holiday with their family. I will say that there was a significant increase in the number of asks this year for the holiday hamper program. So we're taking that data right now and truly understanding what is the reason for that, and then going back to talking with our colleagues in Director General Compensation and Benefits on the why and what are the trends that we're seeing to better support military families as they are relocating across the country, especially as our economic barometer right now kind of moves around in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. This may be a little bit of a rambling question, but I think it's for Ms. Ogilvie. You know, we've heard, we get a lot of great information here today, and certainly I think it's clear that you folks work very closely with the provincial intergovernmental affairs, military relations folks. You know, you spoke about how they're present and engaged, and I just and so there's probably things that you guys talk about that are you know, maybe the next concern or whatever. A couple of things have come to mind here today that I hadn't thought about. For example, housing and you know, childcare and that sort of thing, and then the comment about and I wrote it down as affordability. You know, say for example, if you're moving from Halifax to Vancouver Island or wherever, it must be a huge challenge for military families. But I guess the thing I'm asking is what do you see? What's the next, you know, I mean, what's the next challenge? Have you spoken, you know, have you guys had that discussion with our intergovernmental affairs folks? Thanks.
So who do you have that directed to, MLA Taggart?
Ms. Ogilvie, I think. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll start with Mr. Eisan, and then we'll move from there.
Yeah, thank you for your question, sir. And so, as we've alluded to today, there are 3 priority areas with respect to Seamless Canada, and we're dealing with spousal employment now. I suspect we will deal with childcare in the fall, and then dependent education is the 3rd priority. Those are the 3 priority areas that have been identified by the steering committee for officials to work on. So we are moving along with spousal employment, and as Pam alluded earlier, we have our next officials call this coming Monday, and then those discussions will continue, and then I suspect sometime in the fall we will head to childcare. And then following that, dependent education.
So, Ms. Ogilvie or Ms. Chiasson, anyone like to add to that? Show of hands. Oh, Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to offer that to support what my colleague, Mr. Eisan, has said. Seamless Canada has 3 focus areas. I will gently correct that our focus areas are access to healthcare, child and youth education, and spousal employment. We focused on spousal employment at this particular point in time. One, because we thought it would be a really good proof of concept for the working groups and how well we would be able to execute those working groups, because the working group concept was relatively new for us. Seamless Canada is the department's only FPT that we deal with or that we're involved in. So it makes it a very interesting space to work in. We started with spousal employment as well because of the economic factors that are so relevant to our CAF families. As they're moving from one jurisdiction to another, the cost of living is very different across the country, whether it's the price of houses, or it's the cost of groceries, or it's the changing of the credentials for a military family member to be able to be employed when they move with their military spouse. Wanting the military family to stay together is something that we strive for. We think that it provides a lot of family stability. So if we can make sure that that unit is gainfully employed so that they aren't suffering, or we can mitigate some of the economic fluctuations that they may have as they're moving across the country, that's our goal in terms of the employment support piece for our military families. So we get back to the seamless themes of trying to reduce the mobility barriers as they are related to spousal employment, access to healthcare, and youth and child education. Our next bound will be childcare, because it actually is very closely related to spousal employment. If you can't find childcare for your children when you move to a new jurisdiction, that means that somebody probably has to stay home with the children. Oftentimes that's the non-military spouse. It becomes more problematic when both are military, but it is the space that we're in, and these are the reasons why we're trying to leverage the Seamless Canada platform to work with our provinces and territory to reduce some of those barriers for our families. Thank you.
Thank you. MLA Taggart for a follow-up.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. You know, it's important to me that we're looking down the road and that we're working. There's no surprise. That you're working hand in hand. With our intergovernmental affairs, and so it kind of sounds to me. Am I correct in assuming that you guys have a kind of a close and productive relationship with the province and with respect to intergovernmental affairs, like in kind of the current problems and looking down the road, you have those kind of conversations out there?
So, looking at my screen, I'll go to Ms. Ogilvie. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'll go to you first.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm actually going to defer to my two other colleagues here, so I'll pass to Pam first. Thank you.
Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Laurie. I can say that my relationships, or the Seamless Canada relationship with Nova Scotia specifically, is quite good. I feel like we have an open line of communication. I know that Mr. Eisan doesn't hesitate. If he has a question for Seamless, he picks up the phone and he calls me. If I have a question for him, I either send him an email or I pick up the phone and I call him as it relates to the Seamless Canada themes. Nova Scotia has been a great partner for us. The relationship that I share with the IGA section inside of Nova Scotia, I think, is very collaborative and it's very supportive. And I'm all I can hope for is that it continues down this vein, and so that we can work together to tackle the issues that our military families have. Thank you.
Mr. Eisan?
Yeah. And certainly I appreciate Pam's comments. It is a good working relationship in the Department of Intergovernmental Affairs. A big part of our business is building relationships, and given the importance of this file, we've strived, myself and colleagues within my department that support the military relations file, we've strived over the last number of years to build a strong relationship with Pam and her team, and it's worked very well, I look forward to the next number of months and continuing on this file because it is important to military families, and the military is important to Nova Scotia.
Thank you. So we have around 23 minutes left for our questions, and I'll pass it over to MLA Boudreau, then MLA McDonald, then MLA Jessam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and. From the sounds of it, it sounds like, the department is doing a lot and working a lot with Seamless, and the relationship is really strong, and that's positive. And I was curious about kind of intergovernmental relations and or intergovernmental affairs and how it supports Minister Laurie in the military file and other parts. So are there other ways that the department is supporting Minister Laurie on the military file outside of the great relationship with Seamless?
Mr. Eisan.
Thank you, sir, for your question. That's a very good question. And when I reflect back on the two mandate directives that Minister Laurie was given in his mandate letter as Minister responsible for military relations, one deals specifically, for instance, with the commemorative element of the military, etc. So if in fact, if the minister or in fact other members of the government are invited to commemorative events, and the military tends to have quite a few of those, as you probably know in your local communities, etc., we will support the minister or whoever, Minister Laurie, whoever's been delegated or assigned to that event to go. We will provide any type of briefing notes, speaking notes, logistics, anything that the minister or the member of the government needs to attend an event. So that's one part of it. That's an important part of it as well. And certainly when I look at the mandate directives as well on the Seamless piece, that does take up a lot of time as well, from more like a policy element, because there is at Intergovernmental Affairs we do policy work inside of our department, but also we have to work with colleagues in other departments. So reflecting on the spousal employment work over the last number of months, we've had a tremendous relationship with the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. Their team has been extremely supportive to us, and so has the Nova Scotia Public Service Commission. So it's been extremely collaborative across government, and so far so good. And we look forward as we go and approach the other priority areas in the next number of months. We'll be looking to other departments to support us as well.
MLA Boudreau for a follow-up.
Yeah, no, and I'll go kind of back to the relationship kind of with Seamless, and just you know, something that's been mentioned, I think Ms. Chiasson talked about it, was like the 90-day waiver period program. Like that's been, and is my understanding in Nova Scotia, that's been that waiver program has been implemented or is planning on being implemented here.
Are we talking non-compliant?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Eisan. Mr. Eisan.
Sorry, Chair. 90-day waiver for spousal employment. Yeah. That is part of that is part of our discussions right now with Labor, Skills and Immigration in terms of doing that work. And it's interesting, when Pam was speaking earlier, I don't think a day goes by that we don't talk. And so we're going to be having some discussions outside of just bilateral discussions with Pam with respect to that and other issues that when we provided our feedback to Seamless with respect to the spousal employment. We have to have some further discussions, which are probably going to take place, I think, in the latter part of July. So that is part, the 90-day waiver is part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Eisan. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before I ask my question, I believe it was Ms. Chiasson. What's ESDC? I may have missed that. And you'd like to comment on remits. And so, as I love to say, for the millions of people watching us, so they know what those are in case I missed them, the definition.
Ms. Chiasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. ESDC is a federal government department, Economic Social Development Canada. Inside of that organization, they deal with a plethora of programs on behalf of Canadians. One of the things inside the Labour Ministers, they have a Labour Ministers working group dealing with the Canada Free Trade Agreement. And so that is what I was referring to initially. When I say a remit, we asked the provinces to provide us with some information, and provinces and territories, sorry, I don't mean to exclude our territorial partners. So inside of our working groups, I have twice now asked for them to take away something and provide us information back. And that's, when I say a remit, that's what I've asked for. Thank you.
Emil McDonald for a follow-up.
So, thank you. My question is going to be a little different because I need definition. I hope you're okay with that, Mr. Chair. Because remits is normally when I have to pay Revenue Canada, so that's why I was trying to figure that out. So, and this is, so I believe I might have been a benefit of some of your documents because I was at the Navy LCC 65th anniversary, and the notes that came were very detailed and they were very impressed. And so from the sounds of it, it may have come from your department because they were very detailed. I learned a bunch of stuff and they were impressed on that. So I just wanted to make that comment that if that was, then thank you. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for keeping it in the rails loop. Thank you. All right, MLA Jessom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And along the same lines of questioning as Mr. Boudreau, thank you for the work that you're doing to support our minister. If he ever needs a sub for a mess dinner, feel free to tag me in. I'd like to inquire about, and I do appreciate and respect the testimony that there is a great deal of work ongoing to support the Seamless Canada initiative. I'm wondering if, through the chair to Mr. Eisan, he could provide the committee with, I guess, some particulars about, I guess, interactions or organizations that have been identified and regular contact as a form of outreach to acquire feedback direct the work that that may be brought to the Seamless Canada table.
Mr. Eisan.
I don't, are you asking for a formal document that sort of outlines work to date with respect to Nova Scotia and Seamless Canada?
MLA Chiasson.
Yeah, not necessarily a formal document. I guess just looking for some context about, like, I mean, the military Family Resource Center would be an obvious stakeholder, but just generally at this point, you know, the intentional behavior you have to reach out to different stakeholders.
Mr. Eisan.
Certainly, we can put something together that outlines the stakeholders that we deal with in the military community in Nova Scotia, for sure.
Just for follow-up.
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Eisan. And as, I guess, a follow-up to that, if we as MLAs are to advise the broader military community, the general public, about how they would provide feedback to the minister and the department with respect to military families, could you advise on how we would tell people to engage with your office?
Mr. Eisan.
That's no problem at all. Certainly, we can provide the contact information from our department in terms of the individuals that directly support military relations and support Minister Laurie with the file. That's not an issue.
Thank you very much. MLA Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to say, before I ask a question, thank you for what you do. It's extremely important to our veterans and families. Has the steering committee worked to promote education access to the military families?
We'll go to Ms. Ogilvie maybe for that one.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the question. Family education has been one of the key themes of Seamless Canada. From a programming perspective, what we do in support of military families and education is on January 1st this year, we stood up a education cell within our virtual MFRC to provide dedicated support to families in Canada. So previous to this, most of the focus of a division of the Canadian Armed Forces called Children's Education Management was focusing on the support to children moving to an OUTCAN posting, being educated OUTCAN, more specifically in Europe, and then returning back to Canada. And while there was some support to military families for interprovincial moves around educational supports, it wasn't extensive. So on 1 January this year, we did stand up that cell specifically to provide the dedicated support for families that are moving interprovincially, that are also children with special needs or with special employment or educational requirements. And then we are just in the next little while, but we'll be launching a tutoring program as well. So additional support to military children and youth who, because of interprovincial moves, may be behind or need some catch up for whatever the educational curriculum is moving into a new province. So a lot of the changes that we've made to our educational portfolio has been a result of information that's been provided to us through the Seamless Canada initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. Emily Harrison, follow-up?
Yeah, just point. Are there any fields of interest that you're focusing on as an option for families?
Ms. Ogilvie?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Can I ask for a bit of a clarification? Is the area of interest specific to education or generally to family support?
MLA Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Specifically to education.
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Yes, what our growing focus is on education is not just looking at children and youth education, but as I mentioned, the early childhood education, so childcare as well, which I talked about, but also adult education and linking adult education into the employability component. So supporting, and this will be looking to launch likely at the beginning of 2024, is looking at what are those educational programming that we can provide to military families from all ages to be able to support not only the education and awareness of families, but also the employability. We also we do have a scholarship program where we provide a varying amounts of funding to military family members to be able to access post-secondary education, and that is funded exclusively through our Support Our Troops program. So we have benevolent sponsors who provide funding to us to offer these scholarships program. Very successful. We can receive up to 500 to 600 applications a year, and on average are providing around between 200 and 300, depending on the availability of funding and the actual amount. So the next kind of evolving pieces, as I mentioned, would be around the special needs, the individual education plans, and supporting military families when a child has a more, or an adult has a more specified educational need. What are the things we can do to be able to ensure that as the family locates across provinces, that educational plan can continue to be activated? That is looking forward into the future. At where we're sitting right now, we don't have all those pieces together. Thank you.
Thank you. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe it was Ms. Ogilvie who mentioned about inflation and the financial resilience. And I'm just wondering, how do you feel the programs provided through MFRCs are work to offer stability to our military families on this issue of financial stability? Thank you.
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the question. Within the Military Family Resource Centers specifically, they don't offer a lot of programming around financial education or financial stability. However, CISUP, the division within Canadian Armed Forces that is our financial insurance and financial education and counseling section, does provide financial educational support to military families. And there is a CISUP counselor, not located on every single base or wing across the country, but they're in the process of expanding their program to be able to offer more support for military families, and more so when a military member joins the organization. So not when families or a member is in financial crisis, but to be able to develop the financial planning for military members and their families as they navigate through the various stages of life, and what the financial counselors are able to do to provide that support to military families. So from an MFRC perspective, that's not their area of expertise. However, within CFMWS, we do have that area of expertise that is really is a growth area right now because of the needs of military families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA McDonald for follow-up.
Yeah, so quickly, is there anything, one program or that you really haven't been able to talk about that you want to mention about that the MFRCs are doing? So I'll leave you that, and that'll be my follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. As I mentioned, in 2020, we launched a new strategic framework for the delivery of military and veteran family services. And because we're looking at it from a whole stage of the lifestyle of military members and their veterans, can I say there's something that's not being done right now? No. However, what I can say is that we don't know what tomorrow or next week or a year from now is going to look like. I think the pandemic definitely taught us that we need to be very agile and we need to be prepared to evolve and modernize the program and the delivery of and how the delivery of our services are offered to be able to match with what military families' needs are in the moment. We are just, one of the questions earlier that I didn't jump in on is there's the Canadian Armed Forces also does a quality of life survey with military members and some families, usually about once every 3 years. The administration of the most recent survey has just concluded, and so they are pulling together the results of that. Seeing that data will be very rich and will be able to provide us with what is the area we need to move into to be able to offset the challenges that military families are facing. As I mentioned in kind of the last, we couldn't have predicted 5 years ago that the financial resilience of most Canadians right now would be where it's at. Canadian Armed Forces no different, and so that's the growth of the CISUP counseling and support program to be able to see to offset what those challenges that military families are facing. 10 years ago, the biggest concern that military families or the biggest navigational requirement that military families was around deployments and around the number of military members that weren't in Canada that were overseas fighting for the Canadian Armed Forces. We're not seeing that anymore, but who knows, in a year, 2 years, that might be an expansion to our deployment support program. So what we do is we really ebb and flow based on what military families are telling us that they need. The whole new strategic framework is based on a coaching type strategy where military families come, rather than creating, this is what we have, pick from what we have, military families come to the MFRCs, come to military family services, say, this is what my experience is, what is available to be able to support my unique and tailored experience. And then we connect people, families with those services, whether it be locally or nationally, to be able to have them be able to address what their specific needs are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogilvie. MLA Taggart with just over 3.5 minutes to go.
Oh, this is great because I've been sitting here wondering how I could get my question about rural Nova Scotia in here. And so I don't want to disappoint anybody. So I think it's, what I know is predominantly Navy. I live in Bass River, about 150 kilometers from here, and there's a significant number of folks there that are currently serving. I guess because of my age, most of my friends are aging out here soon and kind of retiring. But I do, and so with respect to easing the transition of moving to a new community. And I think, I might be wrong, maybe the first or second time, but today, but I might be wrong, but I think there's numbers, stats out there that talk about how Nova Scotia, and in particular rural Nova Scotians, have a history of being per capita, like kind of overrepresented in the Canadian forces of all levels. And so I reflect back to my friends, and some of them are still currently serving. There's always been a battle with them. They've chosen to live outside of the urban core. It's always been a kind of a bone of contention with them that, and I've seen a map that they have that has a circle drawn on it and all that kind of stuff, where they were not able to receive any support from the Canadian Armed Forces with respect to living outside of the urban core. Has that ever been a challenge for you? Is that something that has been raised with you? I think it's Ms. Ogilvie with respect to transitioning when folks are, particularly in the Navy, coming home on the West Coast or wherever they're, You got the gist. Thanks.
So, Ms. Ogilvie, I'm going to allow you to answer the question, but if you can be concise, we have about a minute and a half left of our question period, if that's possible, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much. I'll be very concise. From a military family services and MFRC perspective, we don't place geographic boundaries on support to military families. For example, if it's a single military member and their parents live in a completely different province, we provide the support to the families as a unit. From a Canadian Armed Forces perspective, I can't answer what those geographical boundaries are and if there has been any changes made to them. Thank you.
I don't dare give MLA Taggart any chance to. So I want to thank you all. That concludes our question and answer period. Thank you. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Before we finish up this part with our guests this afternoon, we'd like to offer you any closing comments you'd like to make. I can begin with our online guests if you'd like. Ms. Chiasson, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to thank the committee for the opportunity to come today to answer your questions, any opportunity to talk about Seamless and educate and share, the plight of our military families and the great work that we're trying to do to reduce that, those mobility barriers is always a great one. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. Ms. Ogilvie, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of military families, I would like to thank each of you for your interest in military families and for improving their experience. This is very heartening, and very much appreciate the time spent and the willingness to listen to what the challenges are, but also what collectively we can do together to make it better for military families. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eisan.
Well, thank you, Chair. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon and to contribute to an incredibly important discussion. Military members and their families are the backbone of our province as they represent a significant component of Nova Scotia's social and economic fabric. I want to thank this committee for the work that it does as it creates awareness of the importance of military members and their families to our communities and our province. I also want to extend my utmost thanks and gratitude to my colleagues here with me today from both the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services. Nova Scotia values our relationship with the Seamless Canada Initiative, and we look forward to continue these joint discussions to ensure the needs of our military members are met. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Eisan. And as an MLA who represents the great community of CFB Greenwood, I thank you all for your conversation. It's been something that we all need to know, and thank you very much for the update. So that concludes our this portion of our committee. We're going to take our 2-minute recess, and then we'll come back to our committee business. And thank you to all our guests again for coming. Thank you. We're stand adjourned for 2 minutes. Order. Call our meeting back to order. Just to go through a few pieces of business here, the only topic that I have to bring up is just the correspondence that was sent to committee members from Landing Strong. Did everyone receive the letter? We had made a decision as a chair, directed the clerk, just with our topic already selected for this month, that just wasn't time to have them in this meeting today. But is there any discussion on the letter that was received? MLA Burrow.
My understanding about our agenda is that access to our agenda is through our caucuses, that we bring recommendations and then decide on it through an agenda setting process. So is it in order for me? If it is, I would like to move that this request be advanced to the caucuses to consider if any caucuses would wish to bring it forward as part of their agenda setting list.
That's reasonable. Do we have general agreement? That's, yeah, I agree. Thank you, MLA Burrow. Is there any other business? MLA Jessom.
Thank you. Through the chair, directed, I guess, at the government members, and if an answer can't be provided today, I would request that a follow-up be provided at the next committee. We've advanced a motion that was denied to expand the scope of this committee to include military families. We have advanced an agenda item which was rejected by the government to discuss the expansion of this committee's mandate. The government did commit to bringing it forward again at a later date, but we have no, I guess, I'm not clear on when that will come up again. So my question to the government members at this committee, or perhaps something that they can take back and report to the committee at the next meeting, is when we will have that discussion about broadening the scope of the committee's mandate as committed to by members of the government party.
Thank you, MLA Jessom. Is there any? There's no motion really. You're just asking, putting some comments on the table. Is there any comments, MLA McDonald?
As I'm sitting in for the member, I wouldn't comment on hers, but I know that the chair reports back to his members in the caucus, so that's just, I'm not going to comment on behalf of MLA Barkhouse, so thanks.
MLA Taggart, did you have a few comment?
Well, I don't, the word government committed is kind of bothering me. I don't ever remember making that kind of commitment. Somebody might have, I don't know, but the idea that we committed to this, so absolutely. So on that, I'm certainly happy to take it back. But I got to tell you, I sat here today, they were here 12 or 13 months ago, and I sat here today, it seems like they have an awesome relationship with our intergovernmental affairs people. And so, you know, I don't know, do we want to start that precedent of you know, bringing, you know, changing our committee structure? I don't even know when the last time a committee structure was changed. I have no idea. That's a question I'd want to know, you know, before we even go down that road. But that's, again, that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to say, as chair, I do report our committees to our caucus on a regular basis. So it's something we can just have a conversation more, but I just think at this point in time, I don't know if we can put any kind of firm commitment behind any times or like that, but yeah, MLA Jessom.
I'd just like to suggest that I mean, there is a record of our conversation, and this was a commitment that was made by the government to revisit the conversation about the scope of this committee, keeping in mind the interests of military families. We have modernized our committee structure. The most obvious example to me is the introduction of the Health Committee, which I know all parties support and participate actively in, and have participated on either side of the government bench on. So it's important that we modernize. It's important that we keep up to speed with the issues that are facing military families. And this particular committee, labeled as Veterans Affairs, I believe would be suitable to a conversation about how do we provide support to military families as well. And again, I'm happy to bring the documentation back to the committee next session if it would be helpful to remind the government that it was in fact a commitment that was made. I'm happy to do that. I don't believe it to be necessary, but so if we could have some feedback on that by this time next month, it would be greatly appreciated.
Seeing there's no other comments under advisement, thank you. Any other business? Okay, see no other business. Motion to adjourn. Motion we adjourn.
You're not going to tell them when they're coming back to me?
I'm going to do that right now. So our next meeting will be, I had that all ready to go too. Our next meeting will be September 19th, and our topic of that meeting will be the impact on veterans and military families amidst the cost of living crisis. The witnesses will be the Department of Community Services, Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Royal Canadian Legion, Nova Scotia Nunavut Command, and the Emergency Management Office. So at this point, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.